see just what the options are for the GARCs. Okay, so Tammy says her mic is not working. And so, yeah, so anyone who is just called in today, if you could email Tammy Nordman and give her your information. We do have to record to keep a record of everyone who participates. So if you called in through Teams and we have your name, we'll capture it that way. But if you just called on the phone, then please email Tammy Nordman so we can get your contact information. Is that all you need, Tammy? Thumbs up? No? Okay. Okay. I think that's all I'm seeing in the chat and the questions. So I think we'll move on with that.
Brad, Troy's got his hand raised.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, Troy, go ahead. Just unmute your mic and.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah. Yep. Go ahead.
Okay. My question is about in regard to beavers and wildlife for a landowner who is along the Big Blue River for the first time has had beavers show up on their property in a spring-fed creek that goes into the Blue River. Is there any program that will help to support the landowner if the water would get so great that it would start affecting the crop ground, or is it possible to use the pond water from the beaver pond to fill another pond that's higher on the property? The research that I've done, that beavers are quite a productive animal in regard to digging deep ponds rather than spreading out ponds, and thereby keeping the water much cooler and improving fisheries because of that. But this landowner is very concerned about the water getting too deep and flooding part of the crop ground, which in 2019 ended up having about a foot of water covering the whole bottom ground that they have. I know that there's been success in Canada in making sure that they build piping into beaver dams and then relieving the water from the dams if it does get too deep. But is there any incentive for the landowner to do or to keep the beavers rather than just trapping them and tearing out the dams?
Well, Troy, I'll answer that from the EQIP CSP side of it, and say I'm not aware of any activity that we would have to assist through those programs. And I would just throw this open to, I guess, anyone else if they have any thoughts or on it. I really can't help you much with that, Troy, but if there's anyone else who would care to comment back to Troy or send us a follow-up I'd sure be willing to let anyone else have some input on that. Okay, well, hearing none, yeah, I mean, that sounds like an interesting situation, but that's kind of outside of my knowledge of anything that we could do through the Farm Bill programs. But maybe there's some other programs out there that could come in and do help out with that, with the beaver situation. So any other questions? I don't see any other hands up. So with that, I think I would recommend we go ahead and move on to the FSA. And Doug and Levain, are you ready to present your information?
Yes, we are.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Brad. I'll do real quick some information we've got on some of the general, continuous, and grassland sign up. And then Levain's got some information about some additional items under the conservation priority area. So as we neared the end of the general sign up period in February, the deadline was extended and has not been established yet. And at the national level, they're looking at reviewing some of the priority information or some of the incentives that were available under the prior sign up that had started under the prior administration. We now have the new administration. They've decided to take a look to see if there's some areas they want to put some additional focus on. So they're reviewing some of those incentives, and they have not yet reestablished an ending date for the general sign up period. So one thing that they have identified is that as any new adjustments or differences between what was started at the time somebody gave us a general sign-up offer to where they're at once they decide the final policy, they will allow those offers to be revised. So producers will have the opportunity to go back and review or revise their existing offer before this sign up ends. And like I said, we don't yet have a deadline for that. Grassland sign up, because of what they're doing under the general sign up, we have not yet started the grassland sign up. And so that is something that we don't know if that's going to be, when that will actually start. My suspicion is they're looking at some of the things under the grassland sign up procedure also. So we'll have to see what we end up with once they do announce the grassland sign up beginning. Under continuous sign up, we've had a lot of questions concerning any adjustments to the continuous sign up, like the buffers and some of those areas. And we have not yet heard anything one way or another, so we don't know if they're looking to revise anything under continuous sign up or if that would have any effect on any offers that are pending. Our assumption is if an offer has been accepted and been and signed, that is an offer that would not be, or that particular contract would not be allowed to do any revisions if they do make some adjustments to the continuous sign up process. The other thing I wanted to raise today is we do have the Forest Management Incentive, or the FMI, is a program that we've got to deal with forest lands or in ways that would improve the forest health, vigor, productivity, improve the stand, enhance soil health, reduce soil erosion, protect water quality, wildlife habitat, and also in any ways that would diversify farm and rural economies. So that is a new twist that we've got available under the FMI, or we refer to it as the FEMI program, or incentive under the CRP. And we did just this last week conduct a joint training session between FSA and NRCS and our field offices. So that is something that our offices should have at least some beginning information about the program. So if you have any questions or concerns on that, contact your local FSA NRCS office. That was all I had. Levain, if you want to go into your next part.
Can you guys see my slides?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you, everybody. Good afternoon. What I'm presenting to you today is our migratory bird safe. If you remember, this program kind of started or was thought about back in 2014, and then we got our approval signed and we took sign up, and then they basically shut the program down again under the 2018 Farm Bill and had us reevaluate this SAFE proposal. So that's what we're bringing to you today. So what we're going to talk about today is just kind of the overview of this SAFE, and then also the background, proposed changes. Sorry, and then we're looking at like a reverse auction, and then we'd look at auction anchor points. We're going to talk about batching cycles, and then the selection criteria, and then any questions you may have. So what we want is, by going through this, we're going to talk about those changes, and before we can present this back to our national office for them to approve and start or conduct sign up, we need your review of this or any comments or yays or nays on what we're presenting to you today. I'm going to let Andy jump in and talk about what is a playa and so forth before I talk about kind of the policy changes with FSA. Andy, are you available?
You bet. Thanks, Levain, for the introduction. I'm Andy Bishop with the Rainwater Basin Joint Venture, and as you saw in the logos that Levain presented to you, this is a joint project that's taken a lot of work with a lot of different partners to get to the stage we're at, and I can't say thank you enough to Nebraska FSA for really being the leaders to help pilot this proposal, as well as Kansas. This is one of the only reverse auctions that I know of in the country. So a lot of learning as we went, but Ducks Unlimited, Pheasants Forever, Game and Parks Commission, Fish and Wildlife Service, NRCS, FSA, a lot of great people came together to work on this. So just want to talk about playas, the wetlands we're trying to impact through this program, and then turn it back over to Levain and have her talk about how we're trying to change this and make it a little bit more economically viable and competitive to try to drive our price points down and get more landowners interested. So Levain, could you go to the next slide? So playas are shallow ephemeral wetlands found in 3 different geographies in the state of Nebraska. Actually, there's 4. There's the Todd Valleys north of the Platte River up there in Nance County and heading all the way up kind of towards O'Neill. The Rainwater Basin, which stretches from Seward to Gosper County, and then the southwest playas that go basically from Keith County all the way out to Kimball County in the Panhandle there. And then the central table playas that are found up there around Custer County, that Anselmo, Myrna. These wetlands all have very unique soils. If you go to the next slide, Levain. We primarily look at the Massey being the deepest depressional type soil, followed with an outer boundary of a Scott, and then a Fillmore, and then we have some Butler soils that that occasionally have inclusions. So, like I said, they're as you see from this cantina, they're a bowl-shaped type wetland. So they've got a unique watershed to each wetland that funnels the water to the lowest point in that wetland. Next slide. Why we care about it from the wildlife side, this is a state acres for wildlife enhancement. Every spring, we get an estimated 8.6 million waterfowl that come through the Rainwater Basin and central table playas and the central portion of the central flyway. This includes 50% of the mid-continent mallards, 30% of the continental pintails. But then these wetlands dry out after they provide that habitat during the spring, and this is these 4 images here of the same wetland where you see that oscillation between those wet and dry cycles. Once they dry out, they then may fill with a severe thunderstorm in the summer. But the other thing that we're learning a lot about, and I'll hit on this, is the groundwater recharge component. So they're great for the wildlife, but these wet dry oscillations and the clay pans really provide a lot of benefits above and beyond just the wildlife habitat. But just going to the next slide. The wildlife are, you know, tremendously important. I've talked about the waterfowl, but we also have 500,000 shorebirds. Nearly every individual in the wood buffalo or Rancis whooping crane population is expected to utilize these wetlands at some point during their lifetime. This is based on the color band data that we have from whooping cranes. We also have a tremendous amount of resident wildlife. There's some, you know, amazing resources for amphibians, but also the upland buffers provide tremendous habitat for our grassland birds that are really starting to see some declines as well. So it's the waterfowl, it's the shorebirds, the amphibians, you know, the whole suite of both migratory and resident wildlife really rely on these wetlands. From a human side, if you want to go to the next slide, Levine, you know, we've got some really great research work done by Dr. TJ Fontaine. You know, we're upwards of seeing a 100-acre or 100 use day for every 5 acres of public wetlands that we have in the rainwater basin. So it's some of the most used habitat, both you know, from a wildlife viewing perspective, but also from the recreation side. Next slide, Levine. So some of our wetlands that we've instrumented in Tri-Basin Natural Resources District, the amount of recharge that we're getting through these wetlands, you know, can be upwards of sufficient water through 1 acre of wetland to irrigate 7 acres of cropland with a 6-inch, you know, allocation. So the amount of recharge is pretty phenomenal that comes through these wetlands, and that's because of that, you know, closed watershed that funnels the water down, and then those clay soils that crack and fissure, you know, when they dry out, that create macro pores or large recharge points. And then just from the other side, when we talk about resource concerns in the rainwater basin, if you go to the next slide, Levine, forage production within these rainwater basins, we're seeing upwards of 9,000 pounds per acre of forage production. So really some unique ways to integrate these wetlands back into local farm and ranch operations. And that grazing isn't just beneficial for that producer, you know, it's also really beneficial having that cattle grazing that emulates those large herds of buffalo, and it really keeps our wetlands in check and provides that desired habitat conditions. So those are kind of the reasons why we care about these wetlands. And now I'm going to turn it back to Levine to talk about, you know, how we hope to get some of these wetlands back into the migratory bird safe.
All right, thanks, Andy. All right, like I talked before I started, we're kind of going to give you a background and then jump into what our changes are. Like I said, back in 2014, our Playa Lakes joint venture and Rainwater Basin joint venture partnered up, and along with Kansas and Nebraska to submit this SAFE proposal. And then in January of 17, we pushed that was authorized and granted by our FSA national office. And at that time, they allocated, they utilized acreage allocations. And so that's one thing that's going to change, that we're not looking at acreage allocations anymore, which I think is a good thing. But when we first started the sign up, Kansas got 10,000 acres and Nebraska had 10,000 acres. And then back in 17, the notice came out that allowed us to go ahead and start our sign ups. And then now March of 2021, we're going to go ahead and submit it again to go ahead and see if we can get more signups and make it a little more enticing for our producers. And so that's what we're doing now without an acreage allocation. They're not wanting us to do that anymore, which to me is a good thing. This is just a map of those playa areas. We have 3 in Nebraska that would be eligible under this program in those green areas, the counties located in those areas. The counties that we have associated to this migratory bird are 37 counties that fall under those 3 playa clusters that I just showed you on the previous map. Okay, program details, the sign up process. What we want to do with this now is migratory bird safe is considered a continuous CRP sign up. So meaning it's continuous. So we're going to be continuing to take sign up all year long. But during that sign up, we're going to do batch periods as well. So the playa hydrology must be restored to the full extent possible as determined by NRCS. This hasn't changed any. This is what we've done in the past. They also have to remove the sedimentation, fill our concentrated pits, fill within the hydrology soil footprint, and then cost share would be available to that producer to do this. They must meet our cropland eligibility, and that must be planted 4 out of 6 years, 2012 to 2017. Portion of that field must be located in the project area. It has to be located outside the 100-year floodplain, and it also has to be a playa lake. And that would disqualify any marginal pasture land. They would not be eligible to enroll into this. Contract duration and effective dates are anywhere from 10 to 15-year contracts. The practice there is listed wrong. It should be a CP38B, not an E. So that's what the practice will be. Eligible size, this hasn't changed from the past. The maximum enrollment per offer, which we go by tract, is 160 acres. And the minimum offer would have to be 2 acres for the entire offer. We're not going to be concerned with the wetland determination for these. The amount of adjacent upland acreage buffer, which is your buffer, to be enrolled shall be determined by, once again, the landowner and NRCS. And this hasn't changed from the past either. It's limited to acres required to provide a protective buffer to the cropland wetland. And the minimum average buffer must be 120 feet, maybe less than 4-to-1 ratio, but cannot exceed the 4-to-1 ratio. So this is the new side of this program, what we're providing or wanting you to take interest in on how we're going to go forward with this program. So as Andy said, we're using the reverse auction. It's a new concept. The annual rental amount for the duration of the contract is going to be determined by that landowner. The irrigated, we are now going for all of our programs like our Platte Republican CREP, we're using the NAS irrigated rental rates. So they're asking us to use the irrigated NAS rental rates for this program as well. So we'll be using NAS irrigated rental rates by playa cluster, and that's the top rental rate is your irrigated rental rate. The lower rental rate will be determined by your dry land rate by playa cluster. And then each of these will be competitively ranked based on the offer bid amount. Excuse me. Only 50% of the offers will be accepted in each cluster in any one batch period. And that batch period is set up for June 15th and December 15th each year. Right now, Nebraska has 1,172.04 acres enrolled in the migratory bird safe, and that was, like I said, when we implemented this back in 17, then we had 2 signups that we had at that time in 2017 and 18. But since then, it's been on hold, but now under the 2018 Farm Bill, they're allowing us to relook at it and resubmit our modifications and see if National will accept these changes. We broke down the rainwater basin. Like we said, the playas are going to be looked at in each basin. You're going to have the rainwater basin, the central table playas, and then you're also going to have the southwest playas. So these are looked at differently, and the rental rates are set up differently as well. I'm not going to go through every county, but the average on the rainwater basin for irrigated is $261.63. And the dry land rental rate is $140.79. The central table playa, your irrigated average rental rate will be $234.43, and your dry land is $92.86. And our southwest playas is $200.30 for irrigated and $51.60 for dry land. Here's a map of those rental rates. It's kind of hard to see there, but we would have a clearer map to provide to our field or anybody else that would like to see it. But it's basically breaking down what I just showed you the last 3 slides on those average irrigated and dryland rental rates. We're also going to provide an incentives to this program. We always did have PIP and SIP, but we will again authorize PIP, but it's now 20% PIP, and the SIP is at 32.5%. The partners will leverage the landowner's 17.5% restoration cost, but then the landowners will have to provide that 20% restoration cost. We also have a program that came in under the 2018 Farm Bill. It's called the Clean Lakes, Estuaries, and Rivers Initiative Incentive, and that also allows that producer to get an extra 10% increase in their rental rate for the life of their contract under this program as well. And with that, I will take any questions, or if Andy, you have anything to add, or Rich, or Jana, or Doug?
I've got a question for Andy.
Sure.
You were talking about the forage grazing for the livestock after the water soaks in, and that's only got what type of forages are being grazed, and I can only imagine that benefits the grassland birds by having a food source from the fly maggots and other insects that are drawn in by the livestock. And does that, have you seen an improvement in the soils after with the grazing?
So we probably don't have as good a data as we should. We'll have to get Aaron out there to help us with that. But we do see a lot of benefits with the grazing, especially with pheasant chicks and things like that, because a lot of times you get that carrick sedges, you're getting some of your ragweeds, some of your weedy species that provide all the, basically the pollinators and the, the insects, like you said, that are the core for those chicks. But we also have, a way to maintain and, rejuvenate those grasslands through that grazing. Really, the species we're trying to focus against is the reed canary grass, cattails, and bulrush. So we worked a lot with Nadine and Britt Weiser, with the staff there to develop some grazing plans. We have some grazing calculators trying to match our stocking rates to maximize both the forage production, the animal health, but also the habitat. So yeah, grazing is pretty integral to these, and that's one thing that we do provide 85% cost share for the grazing infrastructure, outside of CRP contracts, but also try to maximize the use of grazing as the management, the preferred management tool for these sites. So I hope that answered your question.
Yes, excellent. And I read an article of a farmer who ended up having a obnoxious pigweed problem, and found that it ended up that his quail population just exploded on his property, and so he stopped growing crops and started growing pigweed seed and selling it as a source for hunting areas.
All right. Any more questions for myself, for Andy? Says there could be opportunities to partner with the buffer filter strip portion around a wetland with the Nebraska buffer strip program. I believe we've always included the Nebraska buffer strip program or reached out to them, but yeah, Andy, I don't know if this would be a problem with it, but normally we do have no issue with working with the Nebraska buffer strip program. I believe we actually talked about that. Anybody else?
Oh, Levain, this is Brad. There's a comment in the chat. I'll just read it from Craig. Says there could be opportunities to partner the buffer filter strip portion around of wetland with the Nebraska buffer strip program.
Yeah.
Just a comment.
Right. Andy, did you have anything to add to that? I think we did talk about the Nebraska buffer strip program, I thought, when we were discussing this, and maybe it was a different program, but we could reach out to them as well. I don't know. What do you think, Andy?
No, I think it's great, and I think it offers, it's a program we don't use enough.
Right.
But for those individuals that maybe don't make it in, with that initial sign up, maybe this is a good program that would fit their operation, or maybe they can't get enough of that, that buffer around the playa to be deemed eligible. So I think we just need to make sure we've got all the tools available to those producers.
Yeah, and Craig, you might want to just reach out to us and provide us some of your information if you have any, because I haven't really looked at your Nebraska buffer strip program for a while, so it'd be kind of nice to have some of your fact sheets or information regarding this that we can provide to our field offices as well. I don't know, Craig, I don't know if we have any more, or Brad, I mean, not Craig. I don't know if we have any more. I don't see any more questions. I feel that by this presentation, we're going to go forward with our request to the national office and see if we can get that approved with these changes.
Okay, well, that's very good. Thanks, Doug and Levain and Andy. Very good.
All right. Thanks, Brad.
Yep, thank you. Well, I think we can move on then to the next agenda item, which is Nebraska Wetland Compliance Update and Nebraska Soil Health Update with Carlos Villarreal and Aaron Hurd. So Carlos, if you want to take it from here, you're welcome.
All right, thanks, Brad. And yeah, as Brad said, we'll be having a wetland compliance update, and then I've got Aaron Hurd keyed up to provide an update on our soil health program. So we'll go ahead and get started. Let me try to share my screen and get oriented here. Okay. All right. So as far as the wetland compliance updates, I've asked Corey King to assist in my presentation. If I stumble across something that I don't really understand, it's a new realm for me to be involved in wetland compliance. So that possibility is definitely there. Corey King is the wetland compliance team leader, and we'll go into that here shortly. So we'll go ahead and get started. Today we'll talk about obviously the wetland compliance activities in Nebraska. I'll give you a quick update, and then we're going to introduce some legislation on some amendments of the Food Security Act that we've been involved with over the past year, and then talk about also our Nebraska state offsite methods. And I do want to draw your attention to the picture on the right and ask that you please study it as much as possible and take it all in, because I think this is the only picture on my presentation. So for probably about the next 45 minutes, this is the only picture you're going to see. So try to take it all in. Okay. Also, some additional business items. We've asked Tammy to include a couple of our resources in the files repository in the Teams meeting. I believe, I don't have it pulled up now, but I believe there should be just a files tab at the top. If you'll click on that, there is obviously the agenda and a couple other things, but I want to draw your attention to the Stack WC fact sheet. That might be a quick reference to some of the things we're going to cover today. And also we'll be referencing the hydrology indicators for identification of farmed wetlands and the Nebraska offsite wetland determination methods manual or guide. And then we've also included this PowerPoint presentation for you to look at also. The draft documents, the offsite wetlands determination method and the hydrology indicators. I'll ask that you please do not share those at this time. We are still working on those, and they have not been through the official process for those to be published. So if you can, just kind of keep those for yourself and use them for your own reference. So we'll go ahead and get started with the update on our compliance activities over the last couple of years. This is a map showing our compliance workload for FY18 to FY20. And the yellow dots show where our wetland compliance team is located throughout the state, or I should say throughout the central and eastern half of the state. The numbers have, I guess our backlog numbers have improved dramatically since we've created this team. This team works exclusively on wetlands throughout the state. That involves preliminary determinations, reconsiderations, and we also have our hand in mitigation restoration plans and those types of activities throughout the state. So it's really exciting to be involved with them. They are a really good group of biologists and soil scientists that are doing this work. So we've worked really hard to improve training opportunities and those types of things while we're in these COVID circumstances. So I commend what we've done as a group to facilitate all of the determinations across the state. And like Jeff mentioned earlier, our number one priority is to improve our customer service and improve training for our field staff and also for FSA, just so that we're all able to communicate the determination labels and really give an understanding to our producers what those determinations mean and what they can do and what they can't do and those types of things. So like I said, we're just really trying to concentrate on that during this time, and we look forward to future improvements and other ways that we can better our team once we are able to get to meet in person and do those types of activities. So yeah, so that's our update for this. And also this map is included in that files repository as well. So we'll start talking about Food Security Act legislation. And I might have warned you at the beginning that this is really a new realm for me to understand. So if I jumble something up, feel free to throw a comment in the question section so that I can pause and contemplate what I'm really thinking. So yeah, I see Tammy. Sure. Yep. So the all the documents that we've uploaded, they should be available to you in the comments section as well. And I guess let us know if you're having trouble accessing those documents. Okay, so here goes. Legislation. So in July 17, 2020, a memorandum to the field concerning the implementation of Section 404 of the Clean Water Act and the Food Security Act as amended. There was some waters of the U.S. discussions in the previous administration that kind of triggered all of this. Involved three agencies: NRCS, Corps of Engineers, and the EPA. And I think the reason for this memorandum was just to clearly identify everybody's roles with regards to Clean Water Act and the Food Security Act. So that's what the purpose of that was. And then in August 28th, 2020, the amendments to the 7 CFR 12 highly erodible lands and wetland compliance final rule was published in the Federal Register. And now basically we're just trying to implement those rules. And the Circular 180/21 updated the policy and the guidance that involved the National Food Security Act manual. So NFSAM is the document that we use to facilitate wetland compliance. So these three activities are what the reason why we're presenting on this today. We have a couple of business items that we need to address. And so this is kind of the background of why we're doing this. A little bit more on 7 CFR 12. The final rule confirms most of the changes made by the December 2018 interim final rule and makes these additional updates. These are the updates that were seen that are being addressed. And I highlighted the second bullet because that's the one we're going to talk about today, and that's further clarification for wetland, how wetland hydrology is identified for farmed wetlands and farmed wetland pastures. So the decision is made by the states on how they're going to identify those, how they're going to identify wetland hydrology for farmed wetlands. So we're going to talk about that. The final rule for the Food Security Act identifies the hydrology criteria for farmed wetlands. So it gives us a definition of what a farmed wetland is, and it gives the states 3 options to decide if an area supports the required long-term inundation for farmed wetlands. And this is excluding ply lakes, precosins, and potholes. So here are the 3 options that are given to the states. One, the first option is observation of wetland hydrology indicators as defined in the local field office tech guide. And the second is procedures identified in the state offsite methods for wetland identification. And the third is analytical techniques such as drainage equations and the evaluation of monitoring data. So with these 3 options, the technical specialists and the wetland team leader, we've all decided that we're going to go ahead and try to push this first one. We're going to adopt hydrology indicators and then have them available in the field office tech guide. And those will be the hydrology indicators that we use to identify farmed wetlands for the state of Nebraska. The preamble to the final rule provides that NRCS will seek local input. So we can't make this decision unilaterally. We're going to do it in consultation with the NRCS State Technical Committee. Notice and comment in the Federal Register following that consultation. So what we're going to do is we're going to essentially cast a vote. And once it's decided upon, then it's going to be published to the Federal Register. And then NRCS will issue the local level hydrology indicators in the FOTG, Field Office Technical Guide. So this is what's going to put us in compliance. And this is all that legislation that I shared with you previously. This is our solution to that. NRCS is requesting your input on proposed local hydrology indicators for the identification of farmed wetlands. A little bit of background on the definition of a farmed wetland. I'll try to describe it in my simple terms. A farmed wetland is a wetland that has been manipulated and used to produce an ag commodity crop after 1985, where previously it did not support woody vegetation and met the following hydrologic criteria. So any area that was experienced inundation for 15 consecutive days or more without or more during the growing season, or 10% of the growing season. So this is the definition, and it provides us the necessity to identify how we're going to interpret inundation for 15 consecutive days or more. And so that's the purpose of the hydrology indicators, is that gives us the way forward on making those decisions. These are the proposed hydrology indicators for farmed wetlands. So these would be what we would use to make those decisions, and if the sample unit supports long-term inundation. Currently, we're using the regional supplement from the Corps of Engineers, and I can't recall exactly what that document is titled, but there's not going to be a change in these indicators. It's some of them, it's simply combining the indicators. Some of them it's just renaming the indicators, but we feel that this is an opportunity for us to more align ourselves with national guidance and national policy so that we can have support further on down the road. But the indicators are surface water, watermarks, sediment deposits, drift deposits, algal matter crust, surface soil cracks, evidence of long-term ponding visible on aerial imagery, sparsely vegetated concave surfaces, water-stained leaves, aquatic invertebrates, and perennial obligative plant species. Okay, now we're going to talk about the state offsite methods, better known as the SOSM. The state offsite methods, SOSM, for wetland identification is required by NRCS to outline the methods to conduct offsite certified wetland determinations for FSA purposes in Nebraska. The SOSM is designed to give consistency among NRCS field offices and technical personnel completing certified wetland determinations. So this is our guide within the state, and the hydrology indicators that we talked about before would be identified in this SOSM. We do have some proposed revisions to the SOSM. And since today we're going to be voting on one thing, we may as well vote on another. So I'll give you a quick update on the proposal for the revisions. And again, these are included in the fact sheet that's in the repository. We're going to include some reference scenarios for applicability of on-site method requirements. So essentially, when you run into this situation, an on-site determination is required. So those are the types of reference scenarios that we're going to include in this document. We're going to specify the location of the state conservationist roster of agency experts. So commonly referred to as Job Approval Authority, or JAA. We're going to include this list, this JAA list, in the field office technical guide, and we're going to maintain it. We're also going to expand on the capacity to utilize reference sites in evaluating hydrophytic vegetation. So this will be, uh-oh, I think I'm getting some feedback. Uh-oh. See, someone's opening up a bag of chips. Okay, there we go. We're gonna post the Job Approval Authority list, and we have to specify that in the SOSM. And okay, so the reference sites, yep, we're going to prioritize the methods used to evaluate hydrophytic vegetation. That involves using reference sites and developing reference sites, so that's going to be added in there as well. And then also, like I mentioned previously, we're going to include this new list of hydrology indicators for the identification of farmed wetlands. I hope everybody's enjoying this as much as I am. Okay, stack business items. Okay, so we'll go ahead and lay out some of the recommendations. So today, our plan is to adopt the National Farmed Wetland Hydrology Indicators with no additions or edits. Again, that document is in the, excuse me, the data repository that, or the file repository that Tammy has set up for us. So each one of those indicators that we talked about has about a 1 to 2 page fact sheet attached with that. So there's a ton of information more. And once we get that approved, then we will post that also on the field office technical guide once it's been through the Federal Register. And then also approve revisions to the state offsite manual, the SOSM, that we talked about earlier. So I think the best way to do this is I'm going to list out a couple of options here in a minute, and then we're going to use the raise hand function on the Microsoft Teams meeting to essentially cast your vote. So hopefully this works. If not, then I can give this exact same presentation in, I don't know, 3 or 4 months at the next meeting. I'm just kidding. I don't want to do that. Proposal for hydrology indicators. So we'll go ahead and start. The 3 options that we're going to propose today are, the first one being we're going to adopt all the indicators with no additions or edits, and we're going to approve the SOSM revisions. The second option is to provide an opportunity for you to review in more detail and provide written commentary. And I think with that option, we would, if you care to provide written input, if you'll just send that to me in the next 2 weeks, then we will combine it and address any outstanding concerns that we have, and then move forward. And the last is to set up a subcommittee within the stack, or find a way that we can have dedicated meetings to further discuss. So we'll go ahead and get started. So the first one, like I mentioned, is adopt all national FW hydrology indicators with no additions or edits, and approve the SOSM revisions. So I'll see if there's if you guys are willing, we'll go ahead and open the voting. If you can raise your hand if this is the option that you prefer, and I'll see if Tammy doesn't mind maybe counting the hands that came up, or how that works.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Look, I got it to work. I will be more than happy to count them.
Great. Hopefully everybody's willing to participate.
I've got one question.
Sure thing.
With that choice, does that mean that if there was some changes to wetlands that a landowner did after 20 or after
1985.
Thank you. Then that would be a violation of the wetlands situation, right?
Right. So this is we're not proposing to change the rules of a farmed wetland. Essentially, we're just proposing how we're going to identify a farmed wetland, and both on-site and off-site. But yeah, right. At this time, we're not proposing that we're going to change the laws within the Food Security Act.
Sure. But it would point out a violation had happened.
Well, if sure, if we use these methods to determine that it met the criteria for a wetland prior to 1985, and if it was manipulated since then the option for a farmed wetland label would be reasonable. I think, Corey, if you have any further input on that.
Yeah, I can jump in here for a second, Carlos.
Sure.
Hopefully, I'll try to answer Troy's question here. So, as part of the NFSAM, that is our guiding document that Carlos referenced. And more specific to your question, Troy, about potential violations. Over the course of when we get a request to do a wetland determination, that is the point in time that if we discover a violation, which I think it would be good to define what a converted wetland is here for a second. And essentially what a converted wetland is, based, and this is not quite verbatim from NFSAM, but as close as I can get here without having it directly in front of me, would be to make a wetland that existed as of 1985, and an area that did not have any cropping history. So we're not talking about a farmed wetland situation necessarily, but it would be some manipulation that was done that made that area capable of crop production when it wasn't previously capable of crop production. That's what we're talking about when we're talking about a wetland violation. And that's standard procedure. If we do find that situation over the course of doing a wetland determination, then we're obligated to inform the producer that yes, you have a wetland violation and issue that determination. Does that answer your question, Troy?
Yes, and the situation was that there was a small wetland, but there was some manipulation between the tenant of the land at the time and the neighboring farmer to change the topography so that the neighbor's groundwater ran right across the field, the bottomland field of the family's property, creating a drainage there that wasn't there before and causing an additional amount of erosion because of it. So that. I just wanted to know whether that in fact was a violation, which it was, and feel that, yeah, that'll be fine.
I'll just comment real quick here on that. And not knowing the specifics of that scenario that you just described, I don't want to speculate too much on it, but if that manipulation allowed for something that was previously a wetland to then be cropped and no longer exhibit wetland characteristics, then that is potentially a violation, put it that way. But like I say, if not knowing the specifics, I don't want to speculate too far as that specific scenario.
All right, thanks, Corey.
Hey, Carlos.
Yes, sir.
This is Brett Weiser, and I work with the highly erodible land compliance, and Carlos has the wetland compliance. But for both programs, there's a similarity, and I wonder if it will add to people's understanding. And I hope that I don't get it wrong here. But basically, what we're trying to do with the state offsite methods is make our determination much more efficient. We've done this for a lot of years with our highly erodible land determination. Most of those, we do not go to the field. We try to do as much as we can with our information we have in the office. However, whether it is an HEL determination or a wetland determination that's made from the office, if a producer disagrees with that, they can appeal that decision, and then we're required to go to the field and look at it. So I think it might be helpful to understand that while we're using these offsite methods to make us more efficient, and it has dramatically done that, it's reduced the backlog and the time that a producer has to wait until they get a wetland determination. If they disagree with what we found in the office, they can appeal that. They have 30 days, and then we will make a field visit. Hopefully I didn't mess that up for you, Carlos.
Yeah, Brett, I don't think so. That's great news, or that's great information.
Yeah, I'll just add on. I'd chime in. That's spot on as far as wetlands as well. Obviously, every producer has the opportunity to request a reconsideration on any wetland call that they receive. So, yeah.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and move to the next option. Tammy, I don't know if you can put everybody's hands down, or
I can. Give me just a second. I have 12 counted, so if you'll just bear with me, I'll put everybody's down.
Thanks, Tammy. And while she's doing that, I'll advance the slide and talk about our next option. The next option is to provide a comment period. I think we've decided for 2 weeks, if this is the route that you'd like to take. I see that most of the hands are down. Okay. Yep. So if this is our preferred option, then again, just raise your hand and we'll make it count. Okay, Tammy, let me know when you're ready.
Like, I only have 2 on that one, so if that's it, then
Okay.
I will lower those 2 and bring up the others.
Okay, and the final option is to create a subcommittee or a side committee to hold a dedicated meeting to discuss and provide feedback on the hydrology indicators. So if this is your preference, then please raise your hand. Okay, Tammy, are you planning on sending out maybe meeting minutes or anything at the conclusion of this meeting?
I will have them out sometimes shortly, or they will be up on the website.
Okay, great. Okay, so we'll go ahead and move on. Thank you, Tammy, and thanks everyone for participating. So as a wrap up, we talked about the local level hydrology indicators, and once we decide how we're going to facilitate that, then they'll be posted and published to the Federal Register for public comment, and they will be made available on the local field office technical guide. And the same with the revisions for the state offsite methods manual, again, will be posted in the Federal Register and available on the field office technical guide. Both of these documents still have to be sent to our national compliance leaders, who will again get another set of eyes on them just to make sure that they are correct before publishing to the Federal Register. And from what I have heard, they will be grouped with the remaining states in the nation. So it should just be one publication to the Federal Register. If that makes any sense. It kind of does, but anyway. And then lastly, the wetland compliance team, we are continuing to improve our effectiveness in the state. Again, I talked about customer service, improving communication and technology, and production. It's really important for us to have an avenue for our participants and our customers to go somewhere and find answers without having to jump through a bunch of hoops. So that's something that we're going to work on here in the next year. And technology, technology is not stopping. So we're trying to adapt and adopt those new technologies and those types of tools that are available so that we can be more productive and be more consistent in our duties. And then production, continue to monitor our backlog and make sure that we are keeping up with the requests that come in, and hopefully that doesn't become a problem, and we're going to ensure that we have the resources necessary to keep up with that. And lastly, I have our contact information. If you have a pen, you might jot down our email addresses. If you have any questions or if you are concerned about anything that happened today, just drop us an email, and we'll be more than happy to answer your questions, hopefully. And I really appreciate y'all participating and letting us speak today. And I'm going to turn it over to Aaron Hurd. Does anybody have any final questions regarding wetland compliance? Okay. Well, I think Aaron has more pictures than I had today, so I think you're in for a treat. Aaron, go ahead. Let me stop sharing my screen, and it's all on you.
Yeah, so it might help if I take myself off of mute for a second. So glad to be here. Thanks for inviting me to the program, Brad and folks. Looking forward to the opportunity to present this information today and talk a little bit about soil health. Carlos, can you hear me all right? Everything's looking good?
Yes, sir. Sounds good.
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and present here. Let's make sure it goes to presenter view. There we go. So today we're going to talk about kind of a soil health update at large, and I didn't want to kind of talk in length about any one topic, so I'm just going to try and be brief on many things that are going on in the state that I feel like have a application to what we're doing as the NRCS, and give you a quick update about those things, and would be interested in any discussion or thoughts at the end of this if you have questions. So without further ado, I guess I'll just jump right into this. I feel like this is one of the most important things going on in the state right now, the Nebraska Healthy Soils Task Force, as issued by Legislative Bill 243 in 2019. We spent all of 2020 hashing out a strategic plan for the state of Nebraska, and that was finalized and forwarded for review by the committee, and then there was a legislative resolution number 5 forwarded to the legislature now out of that committee. So that was exciting to gain the committee's support on the bill and those next steps. I think the next steps are finding support for the various aspects of the strategic plan. Strategic plans are funny that way. They outline this really great concept, a big old package, and then advancing those parts and pieces can be interesting, and that's the same thing we all face. So I think the ways that the NRCS can partner with those, or the deliverables I see, are our ongoing provision of resource assessment maps. My goal is to help advise and inform partners about how we're doing a measurement of success. And so we've endeavored to work with several partners and groups across the state to conceive ideas about measuring the success of soil health management in Nebraska. And we've entered into some agreements that I'll talk about here in a second. We've also put a big emphasis in other program opportunities and partnerships and positions. And this is just a snapshot of some things Brad has already mentioned, but I thought I'd draw some extra attention to these opportunities because I think they're a big deal. I think the RCPP with the Nature Conservancy there in the Central Platte and Upper Big Blue NRDs is something to watch. I think that is a great pilot project for a concept of partnership in the implementation of soil health management systems that's foremost in the country right now. We are interested in their partnership with the Ecosystem Services Market Consortium. That partnership there and the businesses and national food production folks and the ag industry that are all partnered in that project. I think it's a perfect example of lots of partners coming together with a tool like RCPP that can actually put conservation on the ground with land managers on private property. And it's a shining example of the NRCS at its best. So I'm really excited about their goals: soil health management system planning and contracting, 100,000 acres of cover crops in 3 years, and voluntary participation in multiple incentive programs and investment markets potential. So just watch that, keep your ears and eyes open for that success. The 2020 Game and Parks Commission, RCPP, partnership with Pheasants Forever and others there, Game and Parks, I mean, in those southwest counties of the state. That's a really neat partnership, and it has been a wild success down there. We've seen cover crop acres increase from basically 0 to a few, surely, to a lot. And because of that success, I think their renewal is really exciting because they're not hitting the ground with nothing going. It's already moving and gaining speed, and we're really making a difference for farmers down there to consider cover crops and the various ways that they impact the environment. I think the interaction with wildlife and cover crops is such a novel idea, and it's kind of on the leading edge of conservation work right now across the nation, and especially on the East Coast. So I'm really excited to see that here in Nebraska and help move that forward. And Pheasants Forever has been really excited about that as well. And they have this precision ag coordinator, Nathan Pfluger, located there in York. And they have a cover crop initiative there that he's coordinating in partnership with the NRCS and Quail Forever as well. And so I'm really excited about that energy located in that area of the state and all of these opportunities and partnerships. So I just wanted to highlight that as a key indication of momentum in soil health and in Nebraska. Our work with Northeast Community College has taken a really interesting and fantastic turn in the last couple of years. We've partnered with Northeast Community College to engage with their students through guest lecturing opportunities and field days. Dan Gillespie has been a major partner in that NRD for a number of years. He just retired. And we were able to move forward with that, all that momentum and partnership there, and initiate a community college alliance at the national and regional level office level. That was amazing to me to see the energy that the community college could take and partner with 11 other community colleges across the Midwest, and recognize that their relationship with the NRCS that we have in Nebraska could be expanded, and others could benefit from that relationship as well. So we're working with them to continue to facilitate that engagement, establish those opportunities for conservation plans even on the college farm, and we're now engaged with them on a soil health management system on their college cropping field. And we've now hosted one intern in 2020. Through the pandemic, even we were able to meet out in the field and give one-on-one training to that young student and study some aspects of the cropping system there. The synergy in this project is really amazing. I just can't iterate enough how partnership is such a key in all of this. Our UNL NRCS partnership has grown leaps and bounds over the last 10 years, and I can't iterate enough how important that is. They're the land grant university that helps back up all of our conservation practices and the foundation of what we do. So we're really interested in engaging with them, partnering with them whenever possible on research opportunities and outreach and education to farmers. And I've just listed here a number of ways that we're working with them. I'm not intending to read every one of these, but UNL is somehow involved, or other key partners are somehow involved in all of these. And the energy that's been generated is really big. And I see this being a shining example of NRCS partnering with a major university in the nation, and we're really in the forefront of that effort. So especially the research that's being completed, I think is changing a lot of things for us and helping us be scientifically founded in the things we're saying, and able to bring that directly to Nebraska farmers and ranchers. So it's really exciting to be directly involved in that, so that we can learn firsthand and then communicate that knowledge. So this is really exciting too. Again, here's another amazing example of NRCS relationships here in Nebraska. There at the federal building, we are co-located with the National Soil Science Center. And that federal national center is right there in the same federal building as the NRCS state office. And through the various ways that we interact, we engage with them in a soil water movement study. They're the only arm of the NRCS that does research projects, actually. And so it was really interesting to gain that opportunity to work with them to identify land in Nebraska where we could conduct a water study of this shape and scale. And I'm really excited about it because we're looking at 3 different land uses and identifying where the water goes in the soil profile and how it moves through the system and how land use impacts the soil, the water movement in the soil. So more to come on that. It's in its fledgling stage, and we've got it implemented, and we're working to collect data. So I just wanted to reacquaint you with the idea that that project does exist, because it's energy, and we're learning there too. Another really interesting aspect of the soils research that's going on nationally is the idea of dynamic soil properties. And the National Soil Survey is a leader in this concept, and it's been developing over the last 10 years, and we've now endeavored to fully implement the measurement of dynamic soil properties across the nation. This is an intensive inventory process of soils. We're looking at properties of the soil that aren't just inherent properties, but changeable properties, like the organic carbon, soil organic matter, biological diversity, and properties of the soil, and amongst other things that change rapidly or over 10 or 20 years in a lifespan of something we could observe. So the idea of DSP is really novel, but the use of DSP to quantify change in a system is now the most new concept. And that's why I put it here, DSP repeated measures. We've endeavored to create this protocol where we would accomplish the inventory of DSP one time, but then to go back 5 and 10 years later and repeat that measurement is showing a lot of promise, and that we are able to track some soil health changes in the soil with laboratory procedures. So the NRCS is advancing this cause, and we as partners in Nebraska with NSSC are able to complete some of these inventories and work to document the dynamic soil properties in Nebraska, and then quantify the change due to land use. So we're really excited about this internally. In 2021's the workload that I see for the department and myself, I just kind of wanted to draw some attention to some things that we still have ongoing. We started the soil health demonstration farms in 2016 and 2017, and that's drawing to an end. We're now in the last year of those contracts, and that's really exciting because the accumulation of benefits associated with soil health work over time to show up in field inventories, in soil samples, and in cropping system measurements such as crop yield. And so the 2020 season is now over. We collected the data. We've actually communicated that data with UNL and our partnership with them to analyze a lot of that information. And we've even now communicated that data and the case study development through the On-Farm Research Network. Nebraska's On-Farm Research Network is one of the foremost on-farm networks in the nation. If you have never been there, Nebraska Crop Watch hosts that website. Nebraska Crop Watch, or UNL's Crop Watch, sends out a weekly newsletter of pertinent research articles and activities in the state. You can sign up to receive those updates. But beyond that, the On-Farm Research Network that's hosted there has their results finder. You can go in and search for any case study that's been done over the last 20 or more years and pull that up by topic or by area and see what's pertinent to your operation as a farmer. And I think that has a lot of power. And so we've worked to partner with them to build cover crop and soil health management case studies to include in that database. So we're building a preponderance of evidence that of the effects of cover crops and soil health management in that partnership. So we're we're continuing into 2021, and we're hoping to have these accumulating case studies develop over the whole course of these on-farm research projects through the soil health demonstration farms, and have a showcase of a 5-year project at the end. And that will be really a big accomplishment. So in 2020, NRCS Nebraska endeavored to update our soil health strategic plan. I saw this as a great opportunity. Our existing strategic plan was coming to an end, and things are gaining speed, and you've seen the activities that are going on and all the changes. I felt like we had an opportunity to draw out a course for the future and think strategically internally and with partnerships, and help promote soil health and conservation work in Nebraska with strategy rather than just by reacting as we go. So we convened and we discussed where we've come from, what's happened in the past, and we kind of discussed all of these events and activities that we've accomplished for soil health in Nebraska, soil health and conservation work. Nebraska's soil health assessment worksheet and the area committees were developed in 2014. You know, we engaged with partners to complete a conservation innovation grant to review the Haney test results across the spectrum of soils in Nebraska. That was really an interesting partnership, and one of the first ways that NRCS Nebraska worked to understand how to measure soil health. And in 2016-17, I've mentioned the Nebraska Soil Health Initiative, and those demonstration farms were initiated. Through 2017 and 20, we implemented a soil health strategic plan to engage with partners and conduct those field days that we've been hosting at the demonstration farms, and a myriad of other things. In 2018 and 19, we hosted a soil health roundtable discussion to promote conversation in the state about soil health and the next steps moving forward. And then in 2019 and 20, we supported the legislative task force in developing the strategic plan. That was an amazing opportunity to work with those soil health champions in Nebraska to strike out and develop a strategic plan for the future. And now in 2021, we're looking forward. So, you know, we have a strategic foundation that we're standing on, and we're looking at the ways that we're routing for the future. We feel like communication, coordination, and collaboration have to remain our continued focus. Partnerships remain the central focus, and we're really cognizant of the innovation of adoption curve and the fact that we have the 3 to 5% adoption rate of cover crops in Nebraska. If you look at that, we're working on our early adopters, and then we're moving in and hoping to move towards early majority of the innovation adoption curve. And that's exciting to me. Those folks, I feel like, need some strong evidence and good support from subject matter experts, and that's why partnerships are so critical. And hosting opportunities to communicate information like field days and webinars and research reports, updates, things like that. And then developing and utilizing the measurements of success and advancing the science of soil health and our partnership with the National Soil Science Center. That effort is really important in my mind for the strategic plan for Nebraska. I've mentioned the On-Farm Research Network. Here's the slide where I intended to talk about the things I've already mentioned. They hosted their results update on February 25th and 26th. That was a really exciting opportunity to hear from farmers who did research on their cropland, to understand a management difference or a technique that they wanted to try. And also this year, they hosted some mini updates from researchers who are working on projects on farm. And so not on small plot work, but on farm research, and then the research from related to that. So those research projects and students that got to present were really energetic and excited about their work. And I felt like informed us on some cutting edge research that UNL is doing. Amazingly enough, in 2018, we partnered with UNL and it's resulted in so many good things, but this is one thing I wanted to highlight. CropWatch now hosts this Soil Health Initiative page, and the case studies that I talked about developed from the soil health demonstration farms that NRCS has partnered with farmers on. Those case studies are hosted right here for you to find. And I just champion you go to this website and look for the Soil Health Initiative page, and there on the right lower side is the Soil Health Initiative bar that has those case studies under it, and you can pull those up. I couldn't do a soil health presentation without talking about soil health and showing some soil pictures. And like Carlos said, you're going to get some pictures from me. I've been now in this position for 5 years, and I'm so excited about the future and what we're learning and doing in Nebraska. And I still see this as a common problem. I heard a presentation that said that the #1 agronomic issue facing worldwide agriculture is tillage-induced root-restricted compaction layers. Well, that's the same evidence and the same opinion that I'm drawing about Nebraska cropping systems. It may be a worldwide problem, but we certainly have it in Nebraska. Every field that's seen tillage has compaction issues at depth and has the resulting horizontal fractures and root restrictions and water movement restrictions. And that's kind of a theme that we're adopting moving forward with all the research that we're doing and the work we're partnering on. So I can't iterate enough that cover crops have a higher rooting pressure tolerance, and they can push through those high bulk density layers. And so that picture on the left there shows those cover crops going straight down, where cash crop roots turn horizontally and have to work really hard to find a crack or a hole or a pore to work their way down through that horizontal compaction layer in order to continue to grow and search out nutrients and water. And by utilizing cover crops to do that work, we can establish a frequently used pathway by other roots to go through the same channel. So I'm super excited about that picture and the evidence that I captured there. But there's also those nice diagrams that describe the field cultivation compaction layer, the disc compaction layer, and the plow pan from maybe 50 years ago. But there's still a plow pan down there that's been unaddressed all this time. This is a really great chart that I talk to farmers a lot about. We work on the concept of bulk density and what compaction is, and the fact that most roots can tolerate anywhere between 1.6 or 1.39 at the low end there to 1.69 are densities that affect root growth. And these are cash crop roots, but densities that restrict them are there on the right, and you can see those numbers. And then, you know, our research is showing that top compaction layer is anywhere in the neighborhood of 1.9 grams per cubic centimeter. That's going to stop every root in every soil texture that is on that chart. So we've really got to address that compaction issue with some work underground by the roots. Excitingly enough, we're building this data from the demonstration farms across the state of Nebraska, and I've taken a snapshot here of several farms that have accomplished several years of measurements, and I just pulled out the bulk density information so that we could get an indication of how we're affecting bulk density in these projects. And so here you can see I really highlighted the top one, the Nemaha County farm there with Darrell Obermeyer. He's actually going to present at the National Cover Crop Summit on that project, so that's really exciting. And there's a lot of energy associated with this project, but he has done winter hardy, that's the WH there, versus winter killed cover crops on the same strips now for 4 years. And so you can see the WH versus the WK, and we've measured bulk density on 32 sites on that 38 or 60 acre field there over the course of those years and just track the change through time. Interestingly enough, this is a 0 to 5 centimeter depth. And so it's very, very shallow, and that's where the rooting activity and the biological activity occurs. And you can see that the bulk density has stayed relatively constant. That's a good thing, in my opinion. It's below the threshold of 50% air and 50% soil. So those are good bulk density measurements. As we go through this chart, you can see some of the numbers increase, some go down. We want the number to go down and decrease or stay the same. And in this circumstance, he does quite a bit of grazing, and that can impact the amount of bare ground that's seen. And I would say it's a win for us to stay constant on the bulk density here in that surface layer. Interestingly enough, I do want to point out the Dodge County farm here, if it's on this chart. I think I managed to take it out. Interesting. So in Dodge County, oh, that's because it's over here. So the bulk density is here in the center, and you can see in 17, the check strip versus the intensive management strip was quite a bit different. And because cover crops got implemented on both strips, the check was corn, beans, followed by cover crops. And the intensive was corn, beans, wheat with cover crops after each crop. Those two strips equalized, but they went down. The check strip actually improved because of the use of that cover crop, evidently, and then stayed really consistent through time. And I'm highlighting this because the surface bulk density stayed the same, just like that Nemaha County farm. But what's interesting is the infiltration rates on this field went from 0.015 on the check strip and in less than ½ an inch an hour on the intensive strip in 2017 to a 2020 value that is a lot more than that, to an inch 0.13, 1.36 on the check strip and 3.46 on the intensive strip. And that amount of infiltration rate change really points to a change in bulk density below the 5 centimeter mark. And I think that those compaction layers that are below ground, below the 5 centimeter mark, have been impacted by cover crops, and that evidence is showing up in the infiltration rate. And so that's why a whole suite of soil health assessment has to be accomplished in those fields, various measurements, so that we can see change that's not evidently showing up, in the surface bulk density, but now is showing up in the infiltration data below that 2-inch mark. So I really like that opportunity to see how they have synergy and can show that. And I really like that the corn yield actually showed a difference this year in a positive way for the intensive management. And it's been separating through time, but this is one of the first indications of a statistically confident separation in that crop yield. So we're really excited about the energy from these research projects. This is a great example of how UNL has helped us understand this data and portray it and communicate it in these case studies through the On-Farm Research Network. And now we can look at the data and really understand it. So without further ado, I wanted to really quickly move into some of these new soil health resource concerns and payments. The NRCS nationally has adopted 4 new soil health resource concerns: compaction, organic matter, concentration of salts was already there. Soil organism habitat loss and degradation is a new one, and aggregate instability is a new resource concern. Those are concerns on cropland that we would be able to identify. We've developed this national cropland infield soil health assessment worksheet. This is a really awesome way to go out to the field and very rapidly assess what we see there, to quickly identify that, yes, we have a soil organism habitat degradation resource concern, or no, we don't. And our field office staff are learning how to use this and utilizing this tool. And we have these decision trees now that help us to proceed through the identification of those resource concerns. Beyond that, the 2018 Farm Bill allowed us to and recent developments have allowed us to adopt new conservation practices. Not very often do we get to say those words, but we now have a soil testing activity. And for the first time, the NRCS can be involved in incentivizing the collection of soil test samples. And then the farmer can submit those for soil testing from a lab, and we can then reimburse them for that cost. That's really an amazing opportunity. I think the name, however, is a kind of a misnomer, because it says soil testing. Folks immediately think, well, that's the standard chemical soil testing. And as soon as we get into the details, we quickly understand that this is a soil health benchmarking activity. This is a whole suite of tests that we would accomplish at the same location. 3 or 4 bags of soil would need to be collected, and then we would submit those to only a few labs in the state are able to accomplish the whole suite of tests that are being required. And only one of them is a chemical analysis of the soil, but there's 5 other tests that we have to accomplish as well, including soil carbon tests and enzyme activity and biological assessments. So we'll get into that detail in just a second. The other practice here is soil carbon amendments, and I'll talk about that at the end. So the 216 soil sampling practice, it's a quantitative analysis of soil physical, chemical, and biological properties. It's not just a chemical analysis, and that's really important to me as a soil health specialist. And then we're hoping to work with landowners to be able to develop a soil health management plan based on those test results. There's a soil health tech note that was written to support the requirements in this soil test practice. And so we use this document a lot to understand this new idea and this new concept. And that's the document we go to. That's available if anybody's interested in it. These are some of the sort of assessments that we're now utilizing through this practice. We're going to evaluate the aggregate stability, the soil organic carbon, the permanganate oxidizable carbon, that's a like active carbon test, the microbial activity, the short-term carbon mineralization, and the bioavailable nitrogen through an acid citrate protein test. So some really advanced testing techniques that only a few labs can accomplish. And there I am collecting some soil samples, but that's probably not how deep we need to dig for some of these samples. But the typical scenario is that we would work with the conservation planner and the producer to go out and identify the resource concerns that are in the field, and then work to collect these soil samples to understand the properties of the soil that may give an indication to the specific things that we need to address. And we can choose to adopt cover crops or a no-till residue management conservation practices. But that's only the first step, identifying the goals and some of the tools we might use. And so we need to continue to work with that partner with a conservation plan and the various practice designs that we do with our conservation partners to really help them walk into how to address that resource concern and the issues we see. So through planning and monitoring, we can use some of the new tools that we have to identify the ways that we can address the resource concerns. You can see if we have a low aggregate stability, here's some of the practices that are recommended, and one of those is cover crops, of course, and a whole suite of good farming practices that we work to call a soil health management system. That's really what I wanted to point out on this slide, is that we're not just using cover crops. It's not just cover crops. It's the whole suite of good farming practices that we're recommending, and we're leaning heavily on no-till and crop rotations and all those things. So that is the message that we're trying to convey. More on the soil carbon amendment. I'm really excited about 808. It's brand new. It's really in its pilot stages. It's an interim conservation practice standard. So that means if we use it, we're going to monitor how it's used, ways that it's good and bad, or the trouble we have, if there's complications or misunderstandings in the way the standard's written, we're going to evaluate that and work to use it. We've worked with partners and our district conservationists to identify some opportunities, and it's available to apply compost. We haven't had interest in that directly yet, and or cross that bridge. But there are other ways that folks are thinking about utilizing this practice right now. And in 2021, we're working with the sugar beet factory out in Scotts Bluff to promote the use of their coal ash with farmers out there. The Panhandle Research Center actually did some research using coal ash on cropland to see how that would work out. And there's been some success with that. So we're excited to be able to cost share on that opportunity and work with those farmers and ranchers to understand that. The other way is with biochar, and biochar is a really interesting product that can be used to promote soil health. It is burnt through a process, and it's basically the charcoal that's left over from the process. And we can apply that and help soil health improve. So here it is, the stable form of carbon, and it's good for soil organism habitat, and that would be a way to address that resource concern. The neat thing about the 216 practice is that we can do repeated measurements again with it, and that is a great opportunity to track change in the soil and see the ways that the management has changed the soil properties. So for more information on that, I would say go to your local service center. We're just getting information out on this ourselves to those field offices. So as we implement this through time, it could take off and gain energy, and we're really excited about it. So that's a wrap for me, and I would just leave you with this. How soon do we need to improve soil health, and what would that change? And I think we could really impact soil water infiltration rates in Nebraska and really soak water into the soil. So thanks a lot, everybody.
Al Junke's got his hand up. Al, what's your question?
Yeah, hi. It's maybe a question and maybe part comment, but and I think you'll all guess where I'm going, because every time I'm in a group, I'm gonna go this route. First of all, Aaron, it was a great presentation. I loved it. As a fellow soil scientist, I love everything. I love the picture of you upside down in the hole. That was beautiful. Everything you did and reported on was great. So I have no negatives to talk about. However, as you talk about going forward, one of the biggest lacks, and I've looked for upper Midwest information on manure management as it pertains to soil health. Here we sit in Nebraska. We're the biggest producer of red meat. We've got, biggest state with cattle on feed. Number 6 in pork production. We just put up 525 poultry barns with maybe twice as many coming in a short order. We have a resource that is amazing in this state, yet when I hear NRCS president, you had one slide that mentioned manure as a short-term practice. That was the entire broaching of that topic. And, when we talk about manure, how does it affect organic matter? You had a whole section on, we got organic matter deficiencies or CEC or, water holding capacity when we're trying to reduce flooding, or how does it work with cover crops? How does it work? Coming from Minnesota, I can tell all of you, it's an amazing sight to drive around this state in the fall and see none of our fields tilled. Oh my gosh, that's almost unheard of if you get up to Minnesota. So you guys are so far ahead in this state on a lot of soil activity. But again, you mentioned the Healthy Soil Task Force. That report came back and we reviewed it. Farm Bureau and us and Cattlemen and the other ag groups reviewed it. Again, the first review when we read it, I don't think there was 1 or 2 sentences in that whole report on manure or manure management or manure as it pertains to healthy soil. And they redid it for the final report and put a section in there on manure, but it was an afterthought. So as long as I'm here as director of the pork producers, and as long as I have a love for soils and think manure is not a waste product, but a product we need more of in Nebraska, I'm going to keep prodding and poking you, along with Amy Schmidt and her group at UNL, along with any Healthy Soils Task Force that comes forward, to please start working together on getting us better information on manure management and how we incorporate this resource we have across our state into this Healthy Soils initiative that we all think is important. So that's my speech. I'm not denigrating anyone. I'm just trying a friendly poke and a friendly reminder. When we're thinking of research, it's more than just cover crops, or it's more than, it's a system. And our system here includes a lot of that good resource. So thank you.
Thank you, Al. I really appreciate that. And you landed that well and safely. I'll take that feedback and move forward with it. I am working with Amy and folks there at UNL on that manure for worth effort directly, and I really appreciate that. So let's move forward with that, and I'll be sure and have manure on a lot more slides next year.
All right, we'll count on it. I'll be here.
Hey, Aaron, Troy has his hand raised as well.
Hi, Aaron. I will enjoy working with you directly. But the information that I've learned over the years is that raw manure put onto a field gives you a one year boost. If it's composted and composted correctly and has the right ingredients in the manure, then it will last 3 to 5 years on the field and really benefit the soils a lot greater than just like a adrenaline shot in your arm. Also, something that I didn't see mentioned was the using worm castings and the leachate from the worm castings that's created from composted waste food and other products from, restaurants, schools, things like that, that is also available. And like composted manure has a multiple year benefit to it, and is something that is used quite often in a biodynamic process for improving the soils. The other thing that I didn't hear and am interested in is when you're talking about rotation, are you talking about just the back and forth of soybeans and corn, or are you including more different commodity crops to include? And then are you talking about using like a Roundup product to put down the ground cover, or are you talking about grazing it and using the livestock to terminate the ground cover?
Yeah, thanks for sharing your observations there and information, and then on to those questions. Definitely, we're promoting an expansion of crop rotation as an opportunity to increase pest management and opportunities and expand a window of opportunity for cover crops with a small grain, cool season small grain, or warm season forage crop. And it's also difficult because some of those have a very low economic return right now. And so we're working to identify those opportunities with folks to grow that alternative crop that has the best opportunity for them at the time, and then take those opportunities when they exist to plant cover crops with those farmers. So yeah, and that's a good point.
All right, not seeing any more hands up. We're going to turn it over to Neil for the last speaker of the day. So Neil, floor is yours, sir.
All right, thank you, Jeff. Folks, I'm going to be short, so hopefully you're okay with that. But I wanted to highlight a couple of funding opportunities that are coming up. I'm going to share my screen here, and the document I'm going to share is in your informational packet as well. Hopefully you all can see my screen. Jeff, can you see it all right?
Sure can.
All right, so I want to talk about two different funding opportunities. First of all, NRCS works closely with the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation to help target and accelerate conservation investments through a collaborative partnership known as the Conservation Partners Program. And they've recently put out a solicitation or request for proposals that if you read through this, I'm not going to read it all to you all. They're due on April 6, 2021, and there's a couple links within the document that can take you to their information to see what they're looking at in the areas of interest that they have. I just wanted to make sure all the state tech partners knew this opportunity was out there. This, like I said, this is through the NFWF or the National Fish and Wildlife Federation. So if you have questions, you'll need to work through their website there to find a contact on that. If you have questions from the NRCS side or how NRCS may, the project may impact NRCS, my email's here at the top of this page. You're welcome to shoot me an email. If you want to talk a project proposal or project idea, I'd be happy to listen and work with you on that. I will put my phone number in the chat box when I am done talking, because I noticed when I put this together that I'd forgotten my phone number. So I will do that for you all. And the second notification I wanted to let you all know about is we are looking at putting out our request for proposals related to the conservation collaboration agreements. In the past 3 years, we've done something like this through NRCS. We've had a grant option or an agreement option. This year, it's only going to be the agreement option. And what I have here is kind of the list of our priorities that we're looking to leverage with partners on. And then we have our emphasis down there at the bottom where it talks about technical capacity and basically working with producers. So please take a look at this. I think this is going to be coming out in roughly a week, and it'll be open for about 60 days. It's not through our grants and agreement division quite yet, so I don't want to commit to when it'll be out, but I have a good feeling it'll be out. And we're seeking proposals anywhere from $20,000 up to $1 million on project proposals. So it's quite an opportunity to look at some different conservation opportunities to work with NRCS and partners. Those are the two hot topics that I have for today. So I'm hoping that my short little presentation here will get us back on track if we're late, and if we're not, I'm giving Jeff a little extra time for his closing. And like I said, this is in the meeting packet or in the chat. If you scroll your chat up to the top, you'll see all the documents for the meeting. And this is one of the documents that's in there for your use. All right, thank you very much. Do we have any questions?
I don't see anything in the chat, Neil, and you are completely ahead of time. So yeah, Jeff.
Yeah, gold star for Neil, right?
Yeah, all on you now.
You bet. Well, thanks first and foremost for you guys participating in that. I would like to give any of our partners an opportunity to update us on anything that they would want to update us on. So I will, if you have an update you'd like to provide, let's have you raise your hand. That way I don't have a whole bunch of people trying to talk over each other at the same time. So if you've got an update you'd like to provide to the group, raise your hand and we'll let you do that quick. All right, looks like Shelly Kelly. We'll give the floor to you.
Awesome. Thank you very much. I was just going to briefly update the group. I'm Shelly Kelly. I'm the Executive Director of the Sandhills Task Force. And we have a new program that just rolled out this year, starting in January, and we are still building it. But we're calling it the Sandhills Stewards Program, working on holistic ranch management practices and trying to improve that. So working with individuals on a one-on-one setting to set goals for improvement of their operation, whether that be the business side, could be human resources, it could be cattle marketing, it could be setting up a business plan, or even just setting a direction and some goals for the future. Or it could be grazing management to set some grazing plans, drought plans, things of that nature. We don't really have very many sidebars on this. Ty Walker is our coordinator that we hired for this position. He's spent quite a bit of time being a rancher for his own operation, as well as working for other people too. So he's well fit to help guide folks in getting introduced to the right people that might help them meet some goals. But brand new, if you visit our website at sandhillstaskforce.org, he's building web pages and has got some information for contact on there too. But if you're working with some ranchers in the Sandhills area that you think could benefit from, or that are willing or wanting to improve upon their business, it's no cost or obligation by any means, but they can sure visit with Ty.
Shelly, what was the name of that effort again?
Sandhills Stewards is what we're calling the program.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity.
You bet. Kenny, looks like you got your hand up.
Yeah, Jeff, this is Kenny Dinan with the Fish and Wildlife Service. I'm the state coordinator for our Partners for Fish and Wildlife program. And we work quite a bit with a lot of the agencies and organizations and private landowners throughout Nebraska to restore habitat on their lands. Just wanted to give the group an update that we've been operating off of 5-year strategic plans, and we're actually just kind of wrapping up our third strategic plan. It ends at the end of 2021. So we're going to be going through the process here within the next couple of months of trying to seek some input from our different partners on what we can do to improve the delivery of our program for the next 5 years. So you can expect some contacts from some of my private lands biologists to some of your staff and to some of the other partners on the call to seek some input on our next revision of our strategic plan. Thank you for the opportunity to comment.
You bet. Thanks for that, Kenny. Looking forward to working with you on that for sure.
Appreciate it.
Anyone else?
I don't see anybody else so far.
All right, real good. So I will wrap it up by saying this. One is thank you all for attending this virtually. I know that's not always the most exciting way to do it. We've probably all had our fair share of Zoom and team meetings in the past. Did want to let you know the next meeting is scheduled for June 3rd. So make sure you get that on your calendars as well. There might be a chance I might still be here. There might be a chance I'm gone by then. We'll have to see what happens with the hiring of this position. So we'll see how that all plays out. But again, thank you for your time. Thank you for your efforts. Appreciate the partnerships that we have with all of you out there. And like I said, I'm here for at least the next couple of months. So if there's anything you guys like to discuss as far as the partnership goes, feel free to reach out to me and I'd be glad to have a conversation with you guys. So again, thanks everybody, and we'll talk to you again soon. Take care. Have a good rest of your week. Enjoy the warm weather.